Yesterday, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that he would be appointing a special rapporteur to investigate how the Chinese Communist Party has been working to undermine and infiltrate our country's democracy by meddling in our electoral process.
I'm announcing that I will be appointing an independent special rapporteur who will have a wide mandate and make expert recommendations on combating interference and strengthening our democracy. In Canada, we believe deeply in the values of freedom, openness, and dialogue. These values are not universally shared by every government around the world. Indeed, I don't know if in our lifetime we've seen democracy in a more precarious place. Many state actors and non-state actors want to foster instability here and elsewhere to advance their own interests. We have long known, and an independent report confirmed it again last week, that the Chinese government and other regimes like Iran and Russia have attempted to interfere not just in our democracy, but in our country in general, whether it's our institutions, our businesses, our research facilities, or in the daily lives of our citizens.
Trudeau makes it sound like he is taking it seriously, but our intelligence agency, that's CSIS, flagged these concerns to Trudeau a long time ago, which seemed to fall mostly on deaf ears. That is, until now. But of course, who was expecting this same prime minister that has admitted himself he admires China's basic dictatorship to take this kind of interference seriously? After all, it has been reported that 11 Toronto area riding candidates were supported by the Chinese Communist Party, the most publicly scrutinized of which is Han Dong in the riding of Don Valley North. That's why here at Rebel News, we launched a campaign at firedong.com, and we even sent a billboard truck to Dong's riding to bring awareness to this flagged security threat and keep the pressure on other elected officials to hold our democracy in high regard and uphold our electoral process with integrity. This is not the kind of security threat that we should be taking lightly or dismissing as racist xenophobia, as Trudeau has attempted to do in recent days.
That's why I've tasked Minister Mendicino to launch later this week a consultation to guide how we will set up a new foreign influence transparency registry in Canada. We need to make sure there is transparency and accountability from those who advocate on behalf of foreign governments while protecting communities who are often both targeted by attempts at foreign interference and who feel targeted when xenophobia and fear-mongering overtake legitimate concern for our democracy and national security. It's very important that we start with this consultation because we have to be mindful of history anytime we're talking about registries of foreigners in our country.
Now, the leader of the opposition, that's Pierre Poilievre, is taking a hard stance on this as well, as he should, and pointing out the fallacies in Trudeau's response to these sweeping election interference claims.
It is actually incredible that we have this uprising at our intelligence body. This has never happened before. They must be very worried about how the Prime Minister is working against the interests of his own country and his own people. They've been warning him for years about this. And what has he done? He's covered it up, even encouraged it to continue. And so they are so concerned about how the Prime Minister is acting against Canada's interests and in favor of a foreign dictatorship's interests that they are actually releasing this information publicly. And what is Trudeau's priority? Not to stop the foreign interference. No, that's not the problem for him. The problem is the whistleblowers. He's against a real investigation into the foreign interference we know happened, but in favor of a tough police investigation into the whistleblowers who are exposing it. This is the Trudeau's approach. This is exactly what he did, but it's exactly what he did with Jody Wilson-Raybould. She spoke out against him helping a Liberal company get off criminal charges. He didn't go after the corruption. He went after the whistleblower. Same with Mark Norman. He spoke up A respected admiral spoke up against liberal corruption in the issuance of multi-billion-dollar contracts. And did he go after the corruption? No, he went after the whistleblower. He always stands up for the corruption, against the whistleblower, and in this case, against Canada's interests.
And as Polyev rightfully points out, we are somehow supposed to trust that this same prime minister who, while embroiled in scandals with the We Charity, resulting in the forced resignation of Finance Minister Bill Morneau, effectively shut down democracy by proroguing Parliament in the summer of 2020. And not because of some extraordinary circumstances, as sometimes is the case, but rather to hide from accountability in these scandals. Well, we were expecting him to take this kind of warning seriously and to effectively appoint someone impartial to investigate and determine an appropriate course of action. Trudeau and his cabinet have countless ethical violations on their file. Canadian agencies overseen by other Chinese descendant appointees, like the Public Health Agency of Canada, have previously evaded the privacy of Canadians for data collection and compliance measuring initiatives. And this same Prime Minister is arguably responsible for the largest truly Canadian grassroots protest movement in our history, the Freedom Convoy. His words and actions were responsible for further riling up already frustrated and infringed upon Canadians by slandering, smearing, and labeling them, his own citizens, as fringy with unacceptable views.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing do not represent the views of Canadians who have been there for each other.
And when they became increasingly upset after 2 years of being ignored by all levels of government with legitimate COVID-19 related restriction concerns and refused to leave the nation's capital until their concerns were addressed, Trudeau invoked unprecedented war and counterterrorism legislation to completely trample on constitutional rights and freedoms, which he now claims to care about in reference to Chinese state actors.
That was an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show. I'm Ezra Levant. Every weekday, I do a monologue about the topic of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest either in studio or via Skype. And then I read your mail, whether it's fan mail or hate mail, which is sometimes even more interesting. This is on our premium service, though, called Rebel News Plus. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. It's $8 a month or less if you buy a whole year in advance. You get my show every weeknight, plus Sheila Gunn Reid's show every week. It's called The Gun Show. It's pretty amazing. You know, we rely on you because we do not take a dime from the government. In Canada, that makes us almost unique. So please help us out and help yourself to some great journalism at rebelnewsplus.com.